Here's a story about Rabbi Mendel Futerfass. Rabbi Mendel Futerfass, he passed away about 30 years ago, and I was very close to him. Can you see this? You get this reflection over there. He is Rabbi Mendel Futerfass. Can you get a picture of him? Anyway, so he was a very lively person, a very, how do you say, a very serious person, a very devoted, very positive person. He went through the camps in Russia. He was sentenced in Siberia. He was there for like 7 years, something hard labor. Anyway, it was very difficult over there for Chabad, especially because Chabad had this idea that they had to spread Judaism. They had to make sure that Jews remained Jews, that they knew who they were. And communism had exactly the opposite desire. And of course, communism was, infinitely more powerful. They had resources, and they had the army, they had and the secret police were everywhere. But nevertheless, there were a handful, maybe even a little more than a handful, of Hasidim of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he basically declared war, and not just a war of, how do you say, survival, but a war of victory. That he actually spread out Judaism. They built mikvahs. They did these crazy things. Chabad is the same thing right now. The opposition is much more subtle nowadays. But also back then, most of a good portion of the communists were Jews, and the ones that were against Chabad, they were almost all Jews. They were almost all Jews. It was called the section. Anyway, so sometimes Rabbi Mendel Futerfass would be sent to distances. Russia is a huge place. He would be sent to long distances to do things, to accomplish something, to bring a message, to whatever. And so once he was riding on a train, sat next to him on the train a very important looking Jew. Important. In those days, I don't think you didn't wear a yarmulke. You would have put a hat on your head. And like young people didn't usually have beards. I think he did, but I'm not sure. In any case, you could tell that he was a chassid. And the man sitting next to him you could tell, was not a religious Jew. And the man sitting next to him, he got into a conversation. Jews like to talk, especially like to talk to each other. So they also like to hate each other, but that's only on the outside. On the inside, they're all friendly. They like to talk to each other. So this man is starting to talk, and he's telling to Torah. He says, "What do you do?" And so Rabbi Mendel says, "I learn Torah." He says, "That's what you do. You learn the Torah." He said, "This man says, I want you to know that I'm a big doctor. I'm a big professor, and I treat, like tens, hundreds of people every week coming to see me." And Rabbi Mendel said, "Me too." He looked at him and he said, "And also I want you to know that sometimes when people, they can't pay me, so I treat them for free." And Rabbi Mendel said, "Me too. I do that also. Me too." And he looked at Rabbi Mendel like, who am I sitting next to? It. He said, "Oh yeah, well, there's sometimes when people, if they don't have any money at all, sometimes I buy for them their medicine, And Rabbi Mendel said, "Oh, me too. I spend hundreds of dollars. I spend hundreds of rubles on other people. I even sometimes go out of my way and I visit them, house calls for." And Rabbi Mendel said, "Me too." And the man said, "What are you talking about? Me too? What? You're a doctor? You meet hundreds of people every day. You give things out for free." Rabbi Mendel said, "No, no, no. Me too. I also think that I'm the greatest person in the world, just like you do." So it comes to show that sometimes the basis, the motivating factor inside of people is that they want to be great or greater than anyone else. They want to compare themselves with everybody else and to be the greatest. And that's what gives them comfort in the world and the life, knowing that nobody is bigger than me, which is not a good trait. It's not a genuine motivation for doing things in the world. But doing things because they're right and not comparing it to anyone else that's truth and genuineness. sincerity. Have a good day with Mashiach now, because that's what we're striving for, is truth and genuineness and sincerity in everything we do. See you tomorrow, Friday, 8 o'clock. Shalom.